Unspoken Issues.
We don't jump into the amalgam universe enough. Chris Armstrong's over there. He knows, because he's the one that thought of this. He's the guy that said this has got to happen. And he's right. The amalgam universe is, honestly, it probably has its own podcast. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. But it deserves one. It deserves a whole host of podcasts on each issue. And then the story behind one of the greatest. And guys, you know, and I know, and we'll say this again probably later in this podcast, we'll never get anything like this ever again in comics. Yeah. It'll never happen.
Unless Disney buys Warner Brothers.
Yeah, now that I could see. However, how did that, well, I'm not going to compare that. I'm not going to say how'd that fare for the Ultraverse, but Superman and Prime, which one has probably a little bit more marketability and might make a little more money? Unfortunately, it's going to be Superman, and they're not going to shelve that property. So you're right. If Disney ever did make the purchase of Warner Brothers, then yes, we could. I don't know. I might do a dance in the street if that happens, because there's the possibility of having this happen again.
Yeah.
I want to kind of,
if it makes you feel any better, technically, at least from a DC perspective, these stories are still sort of canon. After Dark Crisis on Infinite Earth Crisis Multiplier times 9, there was, I think it was called Dark Crisis Big Bang, where Barry Allen was trying to map the multiverse. And there's a listing of all these different Earths, and one of them makes reference to the Marvel Universe, to Marvel versus DC, which Amalgam spun out of.
That's great.
So somewhere out there in the multiverse, the world that birthed these stories still exists.
I love it.
And I don't think I've actually seen proof of this, but I heard that in Across the Spider-Verse, there is a Spider-Boy in one of the shots in the background or something.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's just talk real quick about what happened here, because anybody, to kind of give a bit of a history, and I'm going to rely on you guys to correct me if I'm wrong, okay? This is the mid-90s where Marvel and DC, they're called the Big Two because you have two of the largest comic book publishers out there. They come to an agreement after, what are we talking here, 30, 40 years? Well, these companies probably have their roots a little bit further than that, but this is the mid-90s. So we're talking...
There were a few crossovers before, probably maybe about 20 years.
Right.
We did have Superman, Spider-Man, and Batman Hulk.
Yes. So there were crossovers that occurred prior to this where the two companies come to an agreement and they're going to publish something together.
X-Men Teen Titans in the 80s.
X-Men Teen Titans. If I asked you what the first Marvel and DC publishing crossover was, do you know what that would be?
Ooh,
it's The Wizard of Oz.
There it is, folks. Oh, I love it. The Wizard of Oz. And then, of course, shortly after that are our heroes finally, and villains, getting the chance to cross over. So, yes, this had been dabbled with before, but in the mid-90s, all gloves were off. They've decided, okay, we need to have the battle. And the people that are going to determine the winners of this battle are the people, the readers.
Some of the battles.
Yeah, you got it. So that happens. It's Marvel versus DC. It's what? How many issues was that? 4?
4.
4-issue series that occurs. And out of the battles, we get all our winners and losers. If you want to check out a listing of that, and you guys feel free to comment if anything stood out to you in those battles. But Dean Compton and myself actually did one of our first few podcasts together was Marvel versus DC. And I'll never forget our discussion about Lobo versus Wolverine. And if I remember correctly, the battle in the pages happened. They go behind a bar.
Yep.
And you don't see anything happen, and the only thing you see is the victor emerge victorious. And I could just remember Dean yelling, "Claws up, claws up!" So, anyway, that's one of my fond memories of doing that podcast. But regardless, so the series ends. We have all our winners, all our losers, but the fun continues. Not only does it continue, but it gets great, where they have the idea to create what they call the amalgam universe, where they take Marvel superheroes and villains along with DC superheroes and villains, merge the two together, and create a new superhero supervillain with traits from both companies. Wow. 12 different books. Do you have a listing of the books there? We could just run down of this first. This was in the first run, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Assuming that the first ones were in the Amalgam Age of comics, which is 2 collections, one from DC, one from Marvel, and then there's Return to the Amalgam Age. So assuming that all the originals were in the ones not labeled Return, you had Amazon, which was a cross between Storm and Wonder Woman.
Okay.
Assassins, which I think Elektra was involved somehow. Doctor Strange Fate, which very clearly was a mix of the Hulk and Plastic Man. JLX, Legends of the Dark Claw being the Wolverine Batman mashup with his sidekick Sparrow.
Real quick, Chris, our poll that we did, was it JLX that ended up winning?
Yeah, JLX is the one we did a few years ago.
Okay.
And I think that was a DC published one because I only think that because Howard Porter was the artist and he was doing JLA at the time.
Yeah, that one's listed under DC.
Okay, and Speed Demon is from the first run, and it is probably a Marvel published one because Howard Mackey and LaRocca, who were doing Ghost Rider at the time, did this book. So
yeah, I should have said those that I was listing were the DC collection. So Amazon, Assassins, Doctor Strange Fate, JLX, Legends of the Dark Claw, and Super Soldier, which was Captain America and Superman mixed. Then the Marvel collection was Bruce Wayne, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., Bullets and Bracelets, Magneto and the Magnetic Men, Speed Demon, Spider-Boy, and X-Patrol.
X-Patrol. All right. Okay. This one right here was a poll winner. And to let everybody know who the contestants of that poll were, Chris Armstrong, what this went through your mind? You wanted to go back. We have to go back.
That's right.
What was your thoughts here, man? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I really just wanted to do another amalgam book, another podcast on one of those books because it's been so long and it's such a staple of the 90s. When I think of 90s comics, that's one of the things that really stands out. It was a big deal. But as far as which ones we did the poll, the other one was Lobo the Duck, along with Speed Demon, and I left that up to Evan to decide which two we talked about, or did the poll on. So.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, Evan,
those just seemed like the two weirdest options. The two weirdest options that people would be interested in. I would argue that perhaps the weirdest poll, and maybe a future one, would have been Generation Hex and Challengers of the Fantastic.
I think Challengers of the Fantastic was the other poll choice when we did JLX, because that's one of my favorite ones. Yeah.
Okay.
I really like that one. But yeah, I think Jonah Hex is the only one Generation Hex is the only one I still have not read. I've got a copy of it, but I don't think I've read that one yet.
All right.
I tracked down all of these a few years ago. I didn't really understand why I hadn't bought them when they were coming out. And yeah.
Well, did you get them for a good price?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, Jesse, I can probably tell you where to get all of them for a good price.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I had gotten them at different shows and cons and shops, even in multiple states. And then at one of our local shops, I found an entire long box full of nothing but amalgam comics for $1.
Oh my goodness. Well, they're not going to be reprinted, at least not in the near future. That's for sure. I don't feel it's something that these two companies are going to come together and say, yeah, we need to put out a trade of this.
I think DC would. It's long been my contention that Marvel doesn't need to cross over with anybody.
Okay.
And DC, as we've seen in recent years, will cross over with anybody.
True.
And sometimes that's good. Justice League and Power Rangers was better than I expected. But the only crossover, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, the only crossover that I can think of that Marvel's done in recent years is with Fortnite.
The only
outside of Marvel that they've done in recent years is Fortnite.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I kind of want to do a blog post reading through that series because I know nothing about Fortnite. So just play into the old man doesn't understand video games aspect.
I would read that. I would hand that to my son, and then he would just rail at how wrong you are about things. It would be fun. All right, so we're getting into this poll. Let me just run these results here real quick to kind of tell you who won, as if you couldn't tell. I don't know if we've led on to that or not. But over on Twitter, we threw the poll up. we got 11 votes over there. Lobo the Duck got 45.5% of the votes, while Speed Demon number 1 got 54.5%. So pretty close over there. And then on our Unspoken Issues podcast page, Lobo the Duck gets 47% of the 52 votes. Thank you for everybody that voted. And my wife comes in and says, I voted even though I have no idea what you're talking about. And then I threatened to go. Yes, we do. And I threatened to go upstairs and tell her about both books immediately.
That's the last time she'll take an interest in your hobbies.
So Lobo the Duck comes in with 47% of the 52 votes, while Speed Demon walks away with the victory, 53% of the 52 votes. So again, both of them
runs away?
Yes, runs away. Excuse me.
I like how my contribution in recent episodes has been to interrupt and correct you guys.
We appreciate it, Evan. We're glad you're here, sir. Both of these are pretty close. Lobo the Duck, unfortunately, just doesn't have enough. Which, by the way, I voted Lobo on both ones too. So I'm curious, Evan. You said you voted Lobo, right?
No, I think I voted Speed Demon.
Oh, did you?
Kind of surprised me too.
I am actually very surprised. Chris, which ones you vote for?
I think I voted Speed Demon on Facebook, and then maybe I voted Lobo the Duck on Twitter to offset it.
All right.
Oh my gosh, make a decision, man.
On the fence. All right. Well, again, the good thing about this is you're not going to walk away, ladies and gentlemen, without not knowing what happened in Lobo the Duck, because Chris Armstrong did his due diligence and actually read that book as well. So I'm going to throw it to you, Chris. Can you kind of give us an idea of what happened in that issue? Which, by the way, this was Lobo the Duck written by who?
Alan Grant, art by Val Zemeckis, and inker Ray Crisino, maybe.
Okay, all right.
Colorist Francisco Ponzi. Lobo the Duck, obviously a combo of Lobo and Howard the Duck. Two characters I'm only passingly familiar with anyway. Obviously, I saw the Howard the Duck movie, but...
That is not the Howard the Duck comic book, sir.
But yeah, it kind of opens with Lobo the Duck, which is a great design. He just looks like Lobo, but he's a duck.
Yeah, right.
And he's kind of talking about he's in this world, this city that's been in ruins from some big giant battle. And there's like
wait a second. Is he in a world he never created?
Oh, yeah.
How's it go?
The cover proclaims trapped in a world he never fragged.
That's great.
So yeah, he's talking about this battle that he's survived that everybody else, I guess, died in. And there's references to Thanoseed or Thanoside and Green Skull, some of the amalgam villains, and then Doctor Strange Fate. He's dead. All the heroes are dead, including we see Spider-Boy and Dark Claws dust those flash effects on the walls of a nuclear blast or whatever. Outlines of Dark Claw and Spider-Boy on those. And then he also mentioned, I have to assume it's the amalgam of Darkhawk and Hawkman, because he references a character called Hawk. So I'm just going to assume that's Hawkman and Darkhawk, along with Skulk and Vicky Valkyrie. I don't know who Vicky Valkyrie. I guess maybe Vicky
Vale.
Vale.
Yeah, and Valkyrie. And then Skulk appears in one of the other amalgam books, I think.
It's in Doctor Strange Fate, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds right. But yeah, there are some other characters. The bad guy, Dr. Bongface, who is
nice.
This is great.
Scarface, the puppet, and is it Dr. Bong? Is that the name of the villain?
Yes, Dr. Bong.
Yeah,
you can find a complete history of Dr. Bong, except for his inclusion in Amalgam Comics, at asterisk51.blogspot.com.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen.
There's Ambush the Lunatic, which is Ambush Bug and somebody. I'm not really sure he's
Lunatic. Might have been a Steve Gerber creation in Defenders. I know he was a character in Defenders. Might have been while Steve Gerber, who created Howard the Duck, was writing the book.
Yeah, kind of thumbing through it. It's mostly he's wandering through the wasteland, and then some hot ladies want to hook up with him, and then his girlfriend gets jealous and beats up the ladies and beats up Lobo, and then some more bad guys show up, and there's a little fight. And it's just a fun book, really breaking the fourth wall a lot, much like Howard the Duck books, and even, I guess, Lobo books probably did. I never really read Lobo, so I don't know exactly what the tone of those books necessarily are, but He's also got a little dog that is the Impossible Dog, and he constantly is changing into different characters like Galactus and Wolverine and Superman.
Oh, that's like Impossible Man. And,
yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
So pretty solid entry. And Speed Demon doesn't have this, but Lobo the Duck has a letters page in the back, which a lot of the Amalgam books did.
Completely fake, if I remember correctly. Oh, it's great.
This one wasn't that great of a letters page. It's mostly just fake letters making fun of the book or whatever. A lot of the other Amalgam letters pages would reference fake crossovers that had happened in the past and stuff like that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Lobo the Duck, pretty cool. Not one of my favorite Amalgam books, but the art's really good. It's fun. I would think if you're a fan of those two characters, that it probably is a lot of fun, even more so. But I'm not really into either one of those characters, so I still enjoyed it though. A pretty good book.
Okay, who was the writer for Excalibur, Evan, that I'm thinking of? That it wasn't Alan Davis. Okay, I was like Alan Grant. No, okay, I didn't want.
Alan Grant was not only the writer of Lobo the Duck, but I believe his research was very important in the foundation of Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park. I knew it. I knew it. What
I think Alan Grant wrote a lot of Lobo books.
Okay, all right. Well, then that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it looks like he's involved with the Legion, Legion. Hey, shout out to our good friend Al Sedano and his Legion podcast that he's doing. And, a character we're about to talk about, which is Demon. Looks like he was involved a lot with that one as well. Looking at Lobo number 1 from 93 all the way 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's he wrote quite a bit of Lobo. I was going to say that sounds like a fun issue, and I think that's why I voted for it, because I knew it was going to be crazy and it would just be off the wall, and I was really curious as to what we would get in there. But the listeners decided otherwise, and we are going to be talking about Speed Demon tonight. I want to get this out there because I just thought this initially was just a cross between the Flash and Ghost Rider. And I had no clue until I finally, Speed Demon shows up in this comic that I'm like, oh, that's Etrigan. That's the Demon. I'm an idiot.
Yeah, if you thought this was just Flash and Ghost Rider, then it's clear you're not an Amalgam insider.
Oh my God.
Wow. Do you want to write that one down before we continue?
Interestingly, I had forgotten that too because I haven't read this in years, but I actually did look up on the Amalgam database, Speed Demon. They list him as an amalgam of Flash and Ghost Rider. They don't mention the Demon. They do in the history of the character, but they don't list him as one of the characters that, I guess because it's Blaze Allen.
Okay.
Johnny Blaze and Barry Allen. I guess because of that, they just assume it's only Flash and Ghost Rider. But yeah.
All right.
Plus, this isn't official. It's just the fandom page. So,
well, you guys both agree, though. Etrigan's part of this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll make sure I'm not off my rocker here. Well, let's go ahead, jump into the creative team here. The title of the story is Demon's Night. So written by Howard Mackey and James Felder. Then we have penciled by Salvador LaRocca. It's a pretty big name there. Alan Milgram, which I assume is Al Milgram, right? Right?
So,
sure.
Maybe he was amalgamated with somebody else.
Oh, yeah. You never know. So Al Milgram there on inks, lettered by Richard Starkings and colored by Kevin Tinsley. So, in the darkened alleys where despair finds its dwelling, Hal Jordan face an imminent demise, standing toe-to-toe with Uatu, a guardian of Oa, turned ruthless murderer. The dire moment hung thick in the air until a blazing figure, the enigmatic Speed Demon, materialized swiftly, vanquishing Uatu. Hope surged within Hal, believing his salvation had arrived, only to be shattered as the demon proclaimed its intent to claim Hal's life as well. Meanwhile, within the pulsating heart of Quentin Carnival, the young Wally West grappled with a decision to depart the carnival, urged by friends. Yet, loyalty tethered him to stay anchored by his uncle, the daredevil stuntman, Blaze Allen. As Wally wandered towards Blaze's tent, he stumbled upon a staggering sight, the metamorphosis of the Speed Demon into his uncle. Shock and fascination mingled as Wally confronted Blaze, seeking answers behind his unearthly transformation. Blaze unfurled a tale woven in tragedy, a tale of a soul bound by grief and vengeance. His wife, Iris, slain on their wedding day by an inscrutable figure, compelled Blaze to seek retribution, beseeching the demon Etrigan to fuse their souls, birthing the Speed Demon. Learning that Iris's soul was claimed by the Night Spectre, holder of potent souls, Blaze embarked on a quest to lay her spirit to rest. In the heart of Gotham, the confrontation unfolded between Harvey Osborn, the Green Goblin, and his former cohorts, Scarecrow and Silicon Man. Their clash bore the markings of a larger design as Night Spectre emerged, drawing closer to claim yet another soul. The tumult escalated as Speed Demon spirited Green Goblin away, evading the impending clash with Night Spectre momentarily. Yet as fate tangled their paths, Night Spectre clashed with Speed Demon, poised for a battle of otherworldly forces. A ruse involving a cascade from a water tower served as a momentary distraction, enabling Speed Demon to unleash infernal flames. However, the intervention of Arrowcaster brought a momentary halt until Speed Demon's unleashed fury incinerated the heroic figure. Pursuing Green Goblin, they realized his escape while Night Spectre ensnared the Goblin, retreating to the realm of the Sanctum of Lost Souls, goading Speed Demon to follow, an invitation that he could not refuse. Back at the carnival's midst, the venerable wizard Merlin crossed paths with Wally, unveiling a haunting revelation of Blaze's past refusal to join Night Spectre's quest for souls, an act that cost Iris her life. The wizard was the architect behind Blaze's transformation into the Speed Demon. Stirred by familial bonds and a desire for justice, Wally embraced the mantle to aid his uncle, guided by Merlin's mysterious scheme. Within the Sanctum of Lost Souls, Night Spectre possessed Green Goblin's form, severing Etrigan from Blaze. The looming threat of Blaze's demise loomed large until a new Speed Demon emerged, chaining the possessed goblin and wresting control. As Etrigan sought the identity of his newfound ally, the shifting form revealed Wally, standing alongside Blaze. Fueled by Merlin's prophecy of Night Spectre's intent to claim another vessel and dominate Earth, the trio uniting Etrigan and Blaze anew. Liberating captured souls, they emerged as a formidable team of two Speed Demons, resolute in their quest to thwart malevolence. However, a lingering question gnawed at Blaze's thoughts as the night enveloped him, pondering the identity of the demon who now fused with Wally. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to my girlfriend ChatGPT for coming through with a one-of-a-kind synopsis here. All right, there it is. I laid it all out for you. That's everything that happened in this issue. That is a lot of... Folks, when you got continuity of these two massive companies and you're bringing it all into one, I imagine you got to try and pick and choose what makes it and what doesn't. But there's still a lot that happens in this book. I want to start out with Uatu being a member of the Owens. Count me in.
That's one of the more fun things about the Amalgam books, I think, is not just the main characters that they put together and stuff like that, but like the side characters and the references to past storylines that they're kind of mingling together from different characters that they're using. All that stuff's really interesting, and I would love to hear some of the writers and artists talk about how they decided on some of that stuff. That's really interesting to me.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I want to know how these guys are like, okay, well, we're going to use this, but we're not going to use this. And here's the design of the character. And you know, I'm sure there's probably some great stories out there, but it's a great concept to see these two companies put things aside and say, okay, well, we're going to take our stuff and we're going to put it together and come up with something brand new and try to make it work.
You know, I don't know if we mentioned this earlier when we were talking about Marvel versus DC and the Amalgam stuff, but I think the main thrust behind the crossover and all this stuff that they were doing was just the fact that the industry was in shambles because of the bust, and they were really trying to drive readership back up because sales had gotten so bad by the mid 90s.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of why it happened. And I remember back in 2020 during the pandemic when everything was really shut down and they stopped producing comics for several months, a lot of people on social media, even the writers from Marvel and DC, were trying to get Marvel and DC to do a book together or a series together to get to kind of really bring the industry back up when they started publishing again. It didn't happen, obviously, but I think it was kind of all born out of just a desperation, and that might be why some people will kind of look down on Marvel versus DC and some of these books, is because they think they're just a cash grab. But hey, all comics are made to make money, so that's
right.
That's kind of the point. But yeah, I think they produce a lot of really cool concepts and stuff with these books.
Yeah, desperate times call for desperate measures, but it's still two solid companies that have so much behind them and great characters. And they're not on a slouch for writers at this point in time. We're talking Howard Mackie here, which we just talked about recently when we did our discussion on Spirits of Venom.
He was on the Ghost Rider and Spirits of Vengeance books. He was on at least Web of Spider-Man, and then eventually he would be on the two main Spider-Man books in the late 90s when they cut it down to just Peter Parker Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man. And I do see a lot of people kind of trashing Mackie in social media and even on some of the comic websites when I would look at those and in the forums back in the mid-aughts and stuff. And I've never understood why. I've always been a fan of his stuff, especially from the 90s era.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just to kind of throw some stuff out here in regards to the characters and what we get. We've got the Green Goblin, Harvey Osborn, which is, of course, Two-Face and Green Goblin mashed together there. We have Silicon Man, which is a amalgamation of, is it Plastic Man and Sandman?
Yeah, it's got to be.
Who can tell me? I assume it's the Spectre, and who is the other one he's crossed over with?
I did not know. He's called Night Spectre, and I was
I assumed it was Nightmare.
Yeah, that's who is listed, because I checked on the fandom page for him too, because I was curious, and they have him listed as an amalgamation of the Spectre and Nightmare, so I'm assuming that's correct. But yeah, I didn't know at first who Nightmare was, or who Night Spectre was combining with Spectre. But
that's an interesting combination.
There's really nothing in there to indicate Nightmare other than just the name Night Spectre.
Right.
Green eyes.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I assume maybe the Lost Souls thing, the Valley, or what is it called, the Realm of Lost Souls, maybe. But when I think of Spectre, from what I've read, it's the spirit of, what is it? The spirit of wrath? Is that what it is?
God's wrath of God.
God's
wrath of God.
Interesting. Of the wrath of God, I believe.
So yeah, that's strange.
Souls of power. That's what he's collecting.
Souls of power. So all right, and then Arrowcaster. Who wants to throw that one out there? I'm assuming Hawkeye and somebody maybe, or maybe Green Arrow.
I just Googled that one, and I got two different answers.
Okay.
Hang on, I thought I still had it pulled up, but the DC half looks pretty clearly like Speedy or Arsenal.
Mm-hmm.
But he's shooting green
the
arrows.
Amalgam database says he's a cross between Speedy and Spymaster, and the fandom wiki says he's a cross between Roy Harper, Speedy, and a Marvel hero called Nightcaster, who I cannot find another reference to.
What?
Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that character either.
No, never heard of it.
So then I looked up Nightcaster and Marvel, mainly found a reference to a video game.
Okay.
The first result when you search for Nightcaster and Marvel is Arrowcaster. And there's an Xbox game called Nightcaster, and then it takes you into Night Stalkers and stuff like that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That's strange. That's really weird. What was the other guy? What was the first guy that he was?
Spymaster, which is a Marvel villain. Now there is a Marvel character called Shadowcaster.
Power set look really anything familiar?
No, not real. Well, the one picture I see of him is kind of green, and that dude's eyes were glowing green, but I just thought that was because he was being controlled by Night Spectre.
Okay. Well, okay, and then, Chris, can you throw anything out there about Merlin?
Merlin was the sorcerer in King Arthur's court.
Okay. Any ties to Ghost Rider?
No, I'm just talking about the Arthurian legends. I don't really
okay. I was like,
know how he relates to these characters at all.
I think he's had ties to Etrigan before, and there have been depictions of Merlin in Marvel and DC, so he might be the one guy they didn't have to amalgamate.
Okay. it's a winner.
They packed a lot of stuff, a lot of story and art in here. From the downside, I found a lot of it hard to follow. Even that scene where Arrowcaster, whoever he is, pins Speed Demon to the wall with his arrows.
Mm-hmm.
Looked pretty cool. It would have been a whole lot cooler if we could have seen it all. The only one where we even get part of what it looks like is in this really tiny corner. It felt like it was 2 issues worth of art stuck in and story crammed into one issue. Of course, they didn't know there would be more one-shots the next year. Didn't know if they'd ever get to do this again. So they had to kind of tell a complete story in there.
Yeah.
So that's the downside. Kind of like you guys were talking about. I read some of these. I probably didn't pick them up because I was buying things I was regularly collecting. But when I did decide to try to get them, I was like, why would I not? I put this on the level of the Just Imagine Stan Lee books, which I just worked my way through over on my blog. Haha.
All right then.
No, but no, I have the trades of those for the same reason I have the amalgam issues, because sometimes the quality is a little questionable. Some of those Just Imagine books are loads of fun, and some of them are what the heck. Mm-hmm. But Stan Lee remaking the DC characters from scratch, not to crap on them, just to take these iconic characters and put a Stan Lee spin on them, and Marvel and DC's top creators at the time mashing the characters together. To me, and I'm not ragging on anybody who didn't like it or anything, but to me it was like, how would I not have these in my collection?
Right, dude. Exactly.
Yes, there are issues, and like I said, I think it comes more from trying to cram so much in than a lack of care or quality. It's not the best comic I've ever read, but it is so much flippin' fun.
Right.
And I was trying to, I got a couple more amalgams that I didn't look up in the circus scene where Wally is, I don't think they ever said his full name, but his name has to be Wally Ketch, right?
Yeah, I put it down as Wally West, and I don't know if his last name is mentioned at any point.
He has to be.
Okay, yeah, it's got to be, right?
That's what I would think, but yeah, they don't say it, I don't think.
So when he's talking to the folks at the circus, there was the guy they refer to as Puck, is apparently an amalgam of Puck, of course, and I'm assuming Oberon.
Okay.
And then
who's Oberon?
He is Mr. Miracle's right-hand guy.
He has that same hair and everything?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's what I was kind of curious
And then
about.
he was also kind of he wasn't the butler, but for lack of a better term, he was the Jarvis or Wong for the Justice League International.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Or their guy in the chair, if you will.
See, the weird thing about having Puck crossed over with that character is there was already a little person in the Quentin Carnival in the Spirits of Vengeance story. His name was Wolf, and he had a Fu Manchu and long hair. Yeah, and I guess they just used Puck because he's much more famous of a character. But who cares? It's only 2 panels. So,
right. or maybe it's a 3-part crossover, like Speed Demon and Flash.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or I think in X Patrol there's one that was like a 4-way amalgam. He was supposed to be one character, and then he was revealed to be another character. So I at first assumed that Miss Miracle was a cross between Mr. Miracle and Vindicator from Alpha Flight, but then I saw that distinctive design in her hair, and she's a mix of Crystal and Mr. Miracle.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I see it there. That's not a shadow. Okay. All right.
But I do not know, and I haven't looked it up, who that is amalgamated with the Blob. And I don't have a name to look up. You just call Blob. Oh, he's an amalgam of DC's Chunk.
Chunk. Okay.
I think of the kid from the Goonies. So
right.
DC's
let's look up Chunk.
Yeah, we've got to look that up.
He's
okay. Wow. When I search for Chunk, I get a Marvel character named Chunk, DC's Chunk, and Chunk from the Goonies. On Comic Vine. So apparently there was a Goonies comic. Chunk, short-time diamond thief, this massive man could eat anything and place it in an alternate dimension. He went on to become an ally to Wally West.
Okay.
Oh, did you guys watch the Flash show on the CW?
It's been a while.
I'm not that far into it.
Well, there is a character on there named Chester P. Runk, and that is Chunk's real name, although the guy on the show, I can maybe see a little connection, but he's not Chunky.
Okay.
So, there you go.
There it is. Look at that.
And he does have the little glasses.
Yep.
So, that's
brilliant.
Interesting. We cracked the case.
We did, in fact.
Well, Evan did.
All right, Evan, what do you think of the issue, man?
Oh, yeah, well, that's what we were talking about, right? Yeah, I enjoyed it. Like I said, I found the writing and even the art a little bit confusing, but I think that's more the nature of it. If this had been a 2-issue or 3-issue limited series, I think it would have worked a lot better. And not to put too fine a point on it, but I think the main attraction here is the amalgamations and the crazy combinations and stuff they came up with, less so than the story itself. Didn't know if you guys noticed this, but I liked the dialogue from Uatu. He says, "You are the last of the Corps. With your passing, the dream ends. All the universe believed you to be the traitor." So, and this was right in Kyle Rayner's heyday, where some people still couldn't accept that Hal Jordan had betrayed everybody. So I wonder if that was kind of a nod to the fans, like Hal Jordan was framed.
Hal Jordan, by the way, of Starbrand Corps. So is he amalgamated with somebody?
Well, Starbrand is a Marvel thing, so I think it was just amalgamating Green Lantern and the Starbrands.
Okay, all right, which makes sense.
So, but yeah, like I said, the story, the logic, some of the action was a little hard to follow, but it's those little Easter eggs and things that were a lot of fun. It confused me at the end because I thought the reveal was that Wally's demon was Night Spectre. But I like the fact that even though they crammed all this in and had to tell it as a one-off, they still left a bit of a mystery there.
Yeah, a nice little cliffhanger. Try and figure out who it is.
Maybe Wally's demon is named Zarathos.
Yeah, be some good stuff.
Or something. Well, and we also didn't touch on, not only was Speed Demon an amalgam of Ghost Rider, Flash, and Etrigan, but Etrigan in this was revealed to have originally been Jay Garrick.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
There's that too. So yeah, as far as, is this a textbook example of comic book storytelling? No. Is this a whole lot of fun and fan service, which is the main thing an amalgam comic should be, in my opinion? Absolutely.
Yeah, right. There's a lot of questions that you want answers to that you just may not get. You understand that there's the souls of power. Why in the world these guys have these souls that are powerful?
They're the most evil or the most good.
Right. And it takes you for a ride. Speed Demon has no mercy. When he shows up for Hal, I had to read that a couple times. I didn't realize that he was killing him. I didn't realize that whoa, wait a second. Why are you going to kill him now? Now you must die.
I was curious about that too, because you ought to tell, and Hal, while they're talking, it's clear that Hal is not guilty of whatever he was accused of or whatever. Uatu admits to framing him. Speed even kills Uatu, and then he's talking to Hal, and Hal says no time for bad poetry, which I agree. I don't like the character Etrigan the Demon because of the rhyming.
The rhyming.
For the most part. I think it's kind of annoying, but
I don't mind a little rhyme as long as it's not all the time.
Thanks. Proving my point. He says, many murders have you committed, it must be admitted. To this you must not say phi, which I don't even know what phi means.
I don't even know either, and neither does Hal. Hal's like phi?
And then he says, well, then now you must die. So did he just trick him into saying that?
That's what I was wondering, too, when I was reading that.
For killing him? Like,
I think phi means something like, who cares?
Okay.
But I don't think Hal knew that either. No.
Hal clearly, he's asking what? But anyway, I did think that was weird. I didn't understand necessarily why he had to kill Hal, but it's neither here nor there.
All right.
You mentioned the Starbrand Corps. That's one of the cool things. Even basically a minor character that's dead 2 pages into the book, they managed to rope Hal Jordan, the Starbrand, and the Green Lantern Corps all into this opening sequence. There's also a reference, I don't remember which page it's on, but they reference a previous comic book, and it's Investigator Comics number 7.
Yeah,
that's when Logan disfigured the Goblin.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, and I like a lot of these amalgam books have that. The editorial notes with other amalgam comics that obviously don't really exist. In Speed Demon's little hovel there is a room where he transforms back into Johnny. There is, I guess, a statue of Rintra.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm assuming that's an amalgam of Rintra and somebody else, but I can't see anything on the nameplate besides just Rintra. So maybe it's just supposed to be him. or her. I don't even know if Wrench is a man or a woman. And then there's what looks to be Vengeance's skull in the top left corner. It's kind of covered up halfway with a dialogue or with a caption box. But
you're right. Yeah,
it's a design very similar, if not the exact same, as Vengeance from Ghost Rider, the Venom to Ghost Rider Spider-Man or whatever. Yeah, I like LaRocca. I was a big fan of his in this era. I really don't like his art anymore because it looks way too computer generated. It looks he done a lot of the Star Wars stuff over the last few years, and I really don't like his art that much anymore. I'm assuming it's because he does it all digitally, but to me it looks really jarring and I don't really like it. But this era of his art I liked quite a bit. Again, he does have to do a little too much maybe in these pages that results in some smaller panels. He's done not enough detail as far as what's going on in some of this stuff. But I really like the design of Speed Demon. He's got a different skull than what Ghost Rider normally has. It's sort of a mix of Vengeance, Etrigan, and Ghost Rider. It's like little bits of all those characters mixed in. And I like the design of Wally when he shows up as essentially just Ghost Rider with the motorcycle. But they both have the Flash colors, the red and yellow with their costumes and stuff. So yeah, this is kind of a middling amalgam book. It's kind of one that I liked them all back in the day when I was picking them all up, but this was kind of one in the middle. It wasn't one of my favorites, but it was better than some of the others, and I've always kind of liked it. But it was cool to revisit after, I don't know, it's probably been over at least 10 to 12 years, maybe even longer since I've read this one. So it was cool to go back to it.
Yeah. Busy is probably the best word that I could use to describe what's happening here. It's just, it's so packed full of everything. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, how long it took to kind of get this issue out. I'm not saying that I know that it took long or not, but it had to have taken a while to get everything put together here just because of everything that is happening on every single page. And I'm not talking about just like, okay, hey, we got to draw this character, this small panel, this small panel. Look at your text boxes. Look at the lettering and the speech bubbles. Speed Demon's dialogue boxes are outlined every single time with red flame. And then when you look at Night Specters, there is a lot of work just in the dialogue in this thing and trying to get it on the page and the lettering. It's pretty impressive. But again, my goodness, it had to have taken a good bit of time. Who was the Joker paired with? Sabretooth. It's very much was Green Goblin the jokester at all in the Peter Parker in the Spider-Man comics?
No, I don't remember them using Joker. They had the Spider-Boy, and then in the next wave they had Spider-Boy with the Legion of 2099 or whatever that one was. I don't remember anything going on with him in those books.
Okay. It's just kind of odd to see him he does crack wise every once in a while, and I was like, oh, is he crossed with the Joker somehow here too? But
yeah, it did seem weird that he was kind of one of the villains they use because Two-Face and Green Goblin, neither of them have anything to do with the characters that Speed Demon is crossed with or whatever. Maybe if it had been Demo Goblin and somebody maybe.
Make a taint joke, Evan.
I forgot. Oh, man.
Oh, man. All right.
I let you down.
Let's pick a panel out of these things. I want to go first.
I was like, wait a minute. We had a joke about Demo Goblin. What was it?
Taint.
Oh, I'm sorry to have tainted this podcast with my joke.
Oh, that's okay. You've tainted it plenty with bad puns. All right, we're picking panels, and I'm going first. And I'm taking
Jesse is now feeling faint because I missed a joke about taint.
Gosh.
I approve that one.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm taking somebody's, I bet, here. I'm taking Uatu. So I don't know if I'm taking anybody's, but I feel as far as opening pages go, Uatu as a guardian, it almost fits. You kind of go like, oh, maybe is that a guardian? And as soon as he screams Uatu, you're like, oh no. Now that you look at him, he's definitely got the Watcher garb. He's got the robe. But this color scheme on that, it's red, white with the Green Lantern in the middle, big blue head. So
I'm not sure why he's got a lightsaber, but other than that, yeah.
All right, there's my pick. We'll go Evan Bevins. What's your pick?
Oh man, it was actually tougher than I thought. I'm actually gonna go with the circus scene, just with the because half the fun of Amalgam is seeing the mixtures and trying to figure them out. Okay. So with Miss Miracle, Puck, and Blob.
I like it. All right, good stuff there. Chris Armstrong, what's your pick?
I was tempted to go with the Image of Speed Demon and Ghost Rider. I guess they don't even say who. They don't ever give him a name, I don't think. But
Kid Demon.
Do what?
Kid Demon. Kid Plastic.
Did they say that?
I don't know.
No,
that was my offering.
Yeah, or Kid Rider or something like that. I like the image of them both tearing ass out of Gotham. But I'm actually going to go with, that's the most dynamic one, I guess, but I'm going to go with page 14, the top panel, which is where Speed Demon, he's pinned to the wall and he's unleashing his fiery breath on whatever Speedy's name was. Bones and Ash.
Yeah, that's a good one. Almost a runner-up is the small panel where Speed Demon has the arrows in his eyes pinned against the wall.
If you could have seen the whole thing, that probably would have been my pick.
Yeah, it would have been good. All right. Well, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. That is our discussion on Speed Demon. Tune in next time when we discuss the next issue, 30 days from now, Battle Lines Drawn in Blood. That's right. That is not going to happen because there are no number 2 issues to Speed Demon, unfortunately.
Not yet.
Before we wrap, I was going to check with you guys and see, do you guys, and you may not have even read them all, but do you have a favorite of the Amalgam books?
I still haven't read them all, and it's been a long time since I read any of them but this one.
Yeah, I haven't read all of them. I'm trying to think of, I want to say I read Bullets and Bracelets, which was, that was Punisher and oh my goodness, Guy Gardner.
It was,
right?
It was Diana, I want to say it was Donna Troy, and was it Guy? I remember he was wearing a Punisher
right. It was
shirt.
Guy.
It's been a long time since I read that one too, so I couldn't remember who the characters were.
It's a tough question for me to answer. I almost want to say I didn't even read it, and Lobo the Duck is my favorite all of a sudden. But yeah, you got one, Chris?
Yeah, at the time, it was definitely Legends of the Dark Claw, which that's kind of the easy answer for a teenager who had Wolverine and Batman together. And that one is really cool. And so is the Dark Claw Adventures, which is done in the Batman animated series style that came out in the next wave. But I think my favorite now is, and I liked it then too, but definitely now I think my favorite is Spider-Boy, which has Mike Ringo doing the art. And that one's a lot of fun. It's really cool. It just combines essentially Ben Reilly Spider-Man and Superboy. Really cool art and a fun story. I like that one a lot. That's probably my favorite now.
Okay. All right, well, here it is. There it was. The Amalgam. We've returned to the Amalgam Age, and we are going to come back to it, I'm sure, at some point in the future. These books are always fun to hop in here and discuss. So let's go ahead and get into plugs. Chris Armstrong, you're up first, man. What do you got going on?
Yeah, I got another podcast I do with my buddy AJ called Small Screeners, where we talk about direct-to-video and made-for-TV movies. I'm not sure when this one's coming out, so I'm not really sure what's going to be going on over there. But more than likely, there will be some recent episodes on The Punisher and maybe something Christmas-themed. We did The Punisher 1989 direct-to-video movie. It actually did go in theaters overseas in some places, but in America, which is all that counts, it went straight to video. So we decided to cover it on our podcast. But that's Small Screeners underneath. And you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, all the good, terrible social medias at BrodyMan34. I got the same handle on pretty much all those. So,
all right, very good. All right, Evan Bevins, let's hear it, man. What's going on with you?
I don't think I've mentioned it before, but I have a blog, asterisk51.blogspot.com. Mostly comic book related material, like reading through NFL Super Pro, Just Imagine Stan Lee creating the DC Universe, Secret Defenders, and other random goodness like the time Superman refereed a prison boxing match. And then I occasionally delve into movies, especially those that you can find for $1.25 at Dollar Tree. Should have out soon. One of the first movies I bought at Dollar Tree was Man of Steel. And so I'll probably work that one in with the DC extended film universe sputtering to a halt soon. And also, Jesse puts up with my nonsense on Snap Material, an offshoot of Source Material, where we discuss the mobile game Marvel Snap and what sort of hijinks we get into with that.
Yeah, lots of fun over there. If you like Marvel Snap, playing that mobile card game It is a good time all the time. Well, for myself, if you're listening to the Unspoken Issues podcast right now, you're listening most likely on the Source Material Comics Podcast Network. I say a network. It's the feed. You got the Source Material Comics feed where you can hear this show. You can hear Source Material, which is our comic book show where we talk about just any range of comics. Usually you can hear me and Mark Radulich right now talking about, well, we've talked about Not All Robots. That should be airing here pretty soon, which is a Mark Russell joint. We always have a good time talking to Mark Russell, and this was no exception. We talked about the AIs that are coming for your jobs, folks. It's happening. If you get the opportunity to go ahead and check that out. And of course, like I said, Unspoken Issues, this podcast right here, where we talk 90s comics in affiliation with the Unspoken Decade, which is all about your 90s comics. I think that's it. So for Chris Armstrong, Evan Bevins, I'm Jesse Starcher. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. Unspoken Issues is part of the UnspokenDecade.com, the home for 90s comics, blogs, and podcasts. Unspoken Issues also has a Facebook group you can join if you are interested. Just search the Unspoken Issues podcast and request to join. All of this would not be possible without W2Mnet.com and the Radulich and Broadcasting Network, so make sure to seek them out for more podcasts. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please feel free to share, and we look forward to entertaining you again soon.